Well, hello everyone. Welcome to yet another Sinister Sunday. If you are listening to the audio version of this, then welcome instead to another Morbid Monday. So, hey, I'm coming to you from a slightly different location than I normally do. I am um, sorry. I am coming to you from my office upstairs instead of what I normally do, which is to come to you from the downstairs of my home in the basement, a different studio. What's going on, Dan? So, at any rate, welcome to Sinister Sunday here in the upstairs office. It's not quite as cool as the basement downstairs, but we will endeavor to make the most of it. And it is good to be with you. It has been a very busy weekend for those of you who haven't been paying attention. I've been doing the Santa thing here for the past couple of weeks, and that culminated in yesterday. I was fortunate enough to kind of see all this come to fruition, and got to see the parents show up to get all the gifts that we've been collecting for the charity, the Christmas Anonymous charity. Thanks again to everyone who contributed to that. And so, yeah, I got to be one of the people kind of helping parents go shop for their kids, and it was really cool. It was very satisfying. I got to actually see the stuff that you guys bought, and I could tell, like, oh yeah, that's something that came from our wish list and ended up on the tables, and got to see those parents come collect all the gifts, and um you know they carried bags around behind them as they were picking stuff out, and it was really wonderful, and at times very emotional. I mean, a lot of these people are kind of down on their luck, and there's a certain amount of you know like there is a weird shame that comes from asking for help when it comes to stuff like this, and it was really nice to try to kind of help people feel like, no, this like, this is nothing but a positive thing. And like, there were people who were crying, and like, again, very emotional, really wonderful in a lot of ways, and it was fantastic. So again, thanks to everyone who contributed for that. It was like, genuinely an honor to be kind of part of that. So I'm very pleased. Thanks again for helping make all that happen, and for just kind of making for a good Christmas for a lot of people. That was wonderful. So, Alan asking, "Am I in witness protection?" No, I just shave, obviously for Santa related reasons, and now am in my upstairs office, where you can see, like, there's my stationary bike behind me, as well as books, as well as there's a Bigfoot right there. You'll notice hanging out on the bookshelf, and as well as a monkey. So but yeah. So anyway, Dan saying it was a great cause. It was a great cause. It was super fun. I was very honored to be part of it. It was great. I can't wait to do it again next year. So, you've got a year off before you hear me harping about buying stuff yet again. Okay. But we've got dirty, filthy business ahead of us here this evening. First of all, we've got a new series beginning on the Dark Parade. As of this week, we're going to be covering all three of the Dark Parade, all the Black Christmas movies starting with 1974's Black Christmas, and then we're doing the '06 remake as well as the 2019 remake. So, Alan saying that we pissed off the Cat Squad. Nah, the Cat Squad, man. So Friday, the Duncan dropped the conversation I had with Doug about all the William Friedkin movies, which I now have seen every feature film that William Friedkin ever did, at least theatrically released, and then some. And all included in that is that he did two of them movies for Cat Squad, which was counter assault tactics, terrorism, something like that. Anyway, made for TV, like espionage movies that are truly head scratching. I can't honestly say why those movies exist, but they do, and I saw them. And the second one, I mean, truly, if you listen to that show, you'll know, like, the second one better than the first, which I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying it's true. Anywho, so Dan, I'm actually working on the first two episodes of the Black Christmas series are recorded in the can, as they say in the podcasting business. And the 2019 movie, I'm about halfway through, and I kind of stopped just because I was a little bit tired because I'm old. Gramps was tired, but it did not seem great, and maybe my problem with it, like, again, I'm only halfway through it, and I haven't gotten to the meat of the movie yet, and maybe it gets worse. I don't think it's awful yet, but also it's very didactic. Like, there is no subtlety whatsoever with this movie, and I think that's a little bit of a bummer. Like, there is a way to do this movie that maybe isn't quite so on the nosy, but anywho, that's what's coming ahead on the Dark Parade, as well as some found footage Fool stuff and Heart of Horror. And I was listening today. I was kind of one of the reasons I'm up here today is I was completely disassembling my office and kind of putting it back together, especially my computer desk. And the reason I was doing all of that is so that I can actually do a little bit of game streaming in the future with some of the new systems, like with the PS5 and the Xbox, so that I can, both play in 4K but still capture in a way that's not exactly 4K, but I can stream all that stuff, and I can actually I was running into a problem where some of the games were just like, well, we don't natively stream this game, and so anyway, long story short, I spent more money than I should have selling on some like capture equipment and that kind of thing. But it all sort of paid for itself because I was selling off my old video game consoles, which turns out right now it's kind of a seller's market for that stuff. So I was selling off like an old Xbox One and a PS4 that had some extra storage in it, and it all didn't entirely pay for itself, but pretty close. And it's going to let me do some game streaming that I've been wanting to do, and I'm going to have some time to do. In fact, I'm probably going to do a little bit of that tonight. And you know what? While I've got you guys here, I'll even ask you if you were going to watch some of that, because we've got our Twitch channel, and that's typically what I stream to when I'm doing the video game stuff. But would YouTube be better? And I'll just kind of put a pin in that question, but feel free to drop that question into the chat. Best buff, awesome. Oh yeah. Okay. The Dan was saying he liked the T-shirt, the official The Gate T-shirt. Here we'll The Gate. Yeah, I like this shirt as well. Best Dorf movie, hands down, he says. I mean, what about Blade? He's pretty great in Blade, and Blade's a pretty great movie. Just asking. It's up there. I mean, it's a contender. Don't get me wrong. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's get to not questions, although feel free to throw some questions into the chat. Let's get to some news, because I don't have a lot up front to say other than I have been just doing nothing but like testing stuff today, and I am eager later once let's change that. Yeah. Nah, I can't get the angle right. There we go. Yeah, after completely disassembling the office, um, I'm kind of beat. It's been a day. Jason saying Steven Dorff would have been a fantastic Gambit back in the day. Yeah, yeah. I don't. I would like to hear him attempt the accent before I give a full throated um, positive reaction to that. But I'm not. I'm not against it. I'm not a Dorff hater. That's for sure. Anyway, like I said, let's get to some news here, and I'll circle back around to some questions and whatnot. I got a thing I think in the news that is going to be a little fun to talk about. I hope. Let's start though with something that's a little bit sad. Uh, Poor Anne Rice um, is no longer with us at the age of 80. Anne Rice, the novelist behind Interview with the Vampire, and I mean, geez, what else? Just one of the iconic authors of certainly the 80s and 90s. I remember Anne Rice hitting big, real big with like Interview with the Vampire in particular, and then the hubbub around discovering like, under a pseudonym she'd written all these kind of naughty fairy tales, the Sleeping Beauty series and stuff like that. So yeah, she was a formative novelist for sure. And whether or not you like Interview with the Vampire, and I'm one of those people that I try to read Interview with the Vampire a couple of times. I think I got through it on audio tape, on book on cassette, back when that was a thing. And I always thought Vampire Lestat was kind of the better of those novels. And I didn't read like Tale of the Body Thief and is it Memnon the Devil, Memnoch the Devil, blah blah blah. I never read any of those, but you can't overstate how significant her contribution was to horror literature, and how she pulled so many people into kind of gothic literature and that kind of thing. So you know, I don't want to damn with faint praise, because like I said, I don't think you can overstate just how important she was, even if you weren't the biggest fan of hers. Like, the vampires I prefer are the monstrous ones, but she made horror fans out of a generation, and sort of breathed life back into the vampire as a monster. Like, so much of the modern take on vampirism is directly from Anne Rice and her kind of brooding take on vampires, of like seeing that as a curse, the idea of immortality as this kind of morose curse that is visited on these people, on these characters. Yeah, like Vampire the Masquerade would not be what it is without Anne Rice. Dan saying up there with Mary Shelley in his opinion. Yeah, I mean, I would say, quite frankly, Anne Rice's output was certainly greater than Mary Shelley's when it came to the genre. And you would not, modern vampire movies would not be what they are if they weren't for Anne Rice, for better or worse. You don't get to a Twilight without Anne Rice. Which again, for better or worse, that's just how it is. And those movies and books were seismic as well. And she was kind of the godmother of the modern vampire. And yeah, and all that to say, even despite my own feelings about, sort of that take on the vampire. Like, what an amazing life. What an amazing output. What an amazing, um, creative endeavor that of creating the Vampire Chronicles and that kind of thing. You just can't. I mean, what an enormous win of a life that she led. And her son Christopher was the one who kind of shared all of this in social media, that she had passed away. And as part of that, he described her last moments with her sister, and like the family around her, like she had had a stroke, and the I think it was her younger sister, or perhaps older. Anyway, her sister, as Anne Rice lay in bed, her sister took her hand and just said, "You took us on a hell of a ride, kid," and she did. I mean, that's true of not only her family, but that's true of sort of the world. Like, again, there's just so much that you can trace back to that, like, whether it's like the Vampire Diary show or whatever. Like, all of that stuff happened because of Anne Rice. She is enormously influential. Dan said, I would also say she did for vampires what Romero did for zombies. 100%. Yes, it is right. It is that level. She is Romero level of creative talent and creative influence. So a sad note, but also what a hell of a life she lived. And it's not like she suffered in obscurity. Like, she was acknowledged for being an incredible writer and a towering influence in her own lifetime. So she got to enjoy the reap the benefits of her work, which is fantastic. So anyway, sad news, but boy, like I said, what a life that she led. All right, so enough of the sad news there. Let's move on to something that's a little more fun. Let's catch up with our old friend, our Flynn, Flanagan, our Flynn Flanagan. Mike Flanagan has been talking up the fall of the House of Usher, especially casting news about the fall of the House of Usher. And so it is going to be Samantha Sloyan, who recently was in Midnight Mass, Rahul Kohli, who was also recently in Midnight Mass, Kate Siegel, Zach Gilford, Katie Parker, and Michael Trucco, Malcolm Goodwin, Crystal Ballant, and notably Mark Hamill has joined the Flanagan-verse, the Flaniverse, to do Fall of the House of Usher. I'm really excited. Fall of the House of Usher, like, according to Flanagan, he said, is a modern remix of a lot of the works of Edgar Allan Poe. So it's just Flanagan playing in the world of Poe. And I could not be more excited. I hope that he takes a couple of cues from Roger Corman, and that it's that kind of like gothic horror approach to it. We can only hope, but that would be amazing. I'm very excited to see what he does with it. I don't have a lot more to share about it other than to say anytime that he announces casting news and it includes people from his stable of performers, I could not be more excited. I always think that he is just he's one of the best modern horror filmmakers out there. And hearing that he is going back to do another, limited series like he did with Midnight Mass, I couldn't be happier. Alan saying he likes the ring of this. Sure, yeah. And that he hopes he goes full Freud. Sure. You know, like I hope we get some. I mean, if we're doing Usher, then there's going to be some potential incest and um, Flanagan. Dan says, Master of Horror. I'm excited for everything he is involved with. Is he a Master of Horror? Just for the record, let's check. And against the science, as we have discussed before, you have to make 3 great horror films out of your first 5, and then it's a sliding scale after that. So, as director, let's see. The first real film is Absentia, so let's start there. There's some like TV stuff before that and that kind of thing, but let's start with Absentia. So it's Absentia, great. Oculus, truly one of my favorite movies of the 2000s. Hush, which is also great. So there's your 3 of 5. Before I Wake, which is okay. I don't think it's as good as the previous films. I think it's okay. Not terrible by any stretch. Ouija, Origin of Evil, which I think is very good. Gerald's Game, which I also think is very good. I think that's a lesser work. You know, I think that's like a solid B. Haunting of Hill House, until Midnight Mass, I would have said is his masterpiece. Then Doctor Sleep, which is terrific. He only did 1 episode of Bly Manor, so we'll skip that. I was not blown away by Haunting of Bly Manor. I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was great. Midnight Mass, again, just a masterpiece. And then he's got the Midnight Club, which is coming out, and which was created by him and Leah Fong, and also stars some of, you know, the Flanagan standbys, as well as Heather Langenkamp shows up in the Midnight Club. So, it's about a group of terminally ill patients who gather at midnight to share scary stories, and that sounds terrific. So I'm curious about that. He directed the first 2 episodes of that, and then, of course, Fall of the House of Usher coming up. So Mike Flanagan, undisputed, now that the science is in, undisputed Master of Horror. Dan says, never go full Freud. Yeah, because then it's just nothing but a show about a bunch of cigars. Alan says, run the simulator. That's right. We have officially done the math. Mike Flanagan, unquestionably a Master of Horror. Okay, so let's get to our next story, which I just like because it's kind of fun to debate stuff like this. All right, so the tale is that the Writers Guild of America, the union for screenwriters, has announced that Get Out is the best screenplay of the 21st century so far. And let's see, Parasite is in the top 5. There is also in for just horror films in general, there's Promising Young Woman, Arrival, Shaun of the Dead, Pan's Labyrinth, and Mulholland Drive all make the list. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotted Mind is at number 2. Social Network is at number 3. Parasite at number 4. No Country for Old Men at 5. Moonlight by Barry Jenkins is at number 6. There Will Be Blood at 7. Inglourious Bastards at 8. Almost Famous at 9. And Memento at number 10 for the best films of the or best screenplays, not best movies, just best screenplays of the 21st century. And, you know, again, like any of these lists are kind of meant to engender a little bit of debate. I don't know that I disagree with that. Like, I don't think it's my favorite horror movie of the 21st century, but it's a damn good screenplay. It's real good. It's a real tight screenplay. because it, you know, it kind of captures those elements of like mystery and suspense and social commentary, and like all the reasons that Get Out is kind of a marvelous film is that it's doing so much, it's juggling so much all at once, and does it with ease, and a terrific movie. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that it's my favorite movie of the 21st century, but it's certainly in the conversation. And I like the fact that, like, even as the along with the press that came out around this, that even the Writers Guild was like, look, you know, these are lists just made for people to argue about, and people are going to argue about this list, but what are you gonna do, you know? Based on our voting, here is what happened. I was not invited to vote on that. Just for what it's worth, I am a member of the Writers Guild of America, but they didn't ask me my opinion. I probably would have said, I don't know, what would be the best screenplay. I mean, Hereditary might be up there for me. Parasite is way up there too. Like that, I know it's number 4 on the list, but that might be my number 1 actually. Just from a pure writing point of view, Parasite is real damn good. I think it is based on the written script, which would be different than the movie because it would have the different ending, the much darker ending of the original. So I think that is the case. Dan saying it's an interesting list, some huge omissions and some strange additions in my opinion, but hey, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Writers Guild was pretty upfront about the fact that, like, you know, we do this to just kind of start the conversation about screenplays. And, you know, like the Oscars, for example, were created just to get people talking about movies. It's not really to pick the best movie because, you know, art is subjective, and how do you pick the best work of art? It's like picking the best painting of all time. It's like, well, this is the one you like the most, but is it the best? Is there a way to objectively decide, like, this is truly the best movie or painting or song or whatever? It's hard to do that. There's no real clear way to say that this is the best of anything. But it's meant to get the conversation started around the idea of, well, if not this, then what? And also to just kind of emphasize, like, you know what? Movies are hard. It is like genuinely difficult to pick what the best screenplay is, because there have been a lot of great ones, and you can debate a lot of that. Like No Country for Old Men, not a genre script, but No Country for Old Men is a terrific pick for the best screenplay. I mean, what an amazing movie and an amazing script. So, you know, it's fun though. And I Get Out, like I said, hard to argue that movie just does so much, and it does it with a seemingly effortless manner, which is pretty exciting. Speaking of exciting and great screenplays, this may have none of that. This is a list of, here's all the stuff coming to Sundance 2022, coming next month. So here are the horror movies that are going to be showing up at 2022. The 2022 Sundance Midnight lineup. A movie called Babysitter, directed by Monia Chokri, I think is the pronunciation, or close. The description of that is, after a sexist joke goes viral, Cedric loses his job and embarks on a therapeutic journey to free himself from sexism and misogyny. His girlfriend Nadine is exasperated by his narcissistic introspection until they hire a mysterious and liberated babysitter to shake things up. That is one of those descriptions that I think probably does not do the movie full justice, but it sounds interesting. Then there is Fresh from director Mimi Cave, or Cave, I assume Cave, that is described thusly: the horrors of modern dating seen through one young woman's defiant battle to survive her new boyfriend's unusual appetites. Also sounds kind of interesting. The picture what you can see right there of this kind of egg thing with a claw coming out is from a Finnish movie from Hannah Bergholm called Hatching, which is described as while desperately trying to please her demanding mother, a young gymnast discovers a strange egg. She tucks it away and keeps it warm, but when it hatches, what emerges shocks everyone. That sounds pretty cool. Piggy from Spain is directed by Carlotta Pereda and is described as Sarah deals with constant teasing from girls in her small town, but it comes to an end when a stranger kidnaps her tormentors. Sarah knows more than she's saying and must decide between speaking up and saving the girls or saying nothing to protect the strange man who spared her. That sounds pretty interesting. And a lot of these obviously dealing with kind of social issues, but it's Sundance. That's what you would expect from Sundance. And the final film in the Midnight series in 2020, or 2022 rather, would be Speak No Evil from Christian Tofdrup from Denmark, and is described like this. A Danish family visits a Dutch family they met on a holiday. What was supposed to be an idyllic weekend slowly starts unraveling as the Danes try to stay polite in the face of unpleasantness. And that sounds interesting to me. I'm a big fan of movies that kind of explore the idea of, like, you know, what happens when you stop being polite and start being real. You know, the notion that it is human nature to be like a social animal and to allow a lot of things sort of fly when in the good name of just being polite. And so a movie like this, Speak No Evil, sounds like something I would enjoy. But an interesting kind of group of movies that, you know, maybe duds. There may be a real classic in there, like Relic came out of the Sundance Midnight collection, and Relic is amazing. Alan is saying No Country for Old Men is the only Texas Chainsaw sequel. It's real good. It's real good. Also saying that the WGA, I assume, needs a science-based system. Again, they did not consult me. We have a way to evaluate these things, and unfortunately, they did not come to me for that kind of thing. Jim Connick says, did some thinking this week on women masters, could only think of two that might have enough features, Roberta Finlay or Stephanie Rothman, and both of them are more exploitation than horror. All right, well, let's run the science on this. Okay. Roberta, I feel like I was just discussing Roberta Finlay recently. And give me, maybe I'm not spelling this right. Give me a Roberta Finlay movie, and I'll look it up that way. And then Stephanie Rothman. All right, Stephanie Rothman. Director of Bloodbath. Which one is Bloodbath? Have I seen this? I have not. Have not seen Bloodbath, so I can't speak to that. It's a Bikini World. Or wait, whoa. No, Bloodbath. It's Bikini World. Haven't seen that. Student Nurses. Haven't seen that. The Velvet Vampire. I have seen, and I think that is pretty fun. Group Marriage. I have not seen. Terminal Island. Have I seen Terminal Island? I have not. That sounds really interesting. You know what? Well, I can't say for sure that she is a master of horror. I don't know that she did enough pure horror movies. But again, we keep running into that problem of, you know, not enough women who have done a series of horror films. But an interesting collection of films that we might explore later. A Women's Torment. Okay. Um, is the Roberta Findlay film. Um, I still can't find her on IMDb. I can't find A Woman's Torment either. So you know what? We'll, I'll have to dig into that. Um, Glenn, hey, what's up, Glenn? Says which one of the Sundance movies will be the people walked out because they were so shocked movie this year? Um, there's always one. There's always one or two. I don't mind that, to be fair. Because it's normies. The normies are going to the horror movies for that, and coming out like clutching their pearls, like, oh my goodness. Raw was like that. Yeah, it's fine. I'm cool with that. It's like any of those advertisements are like the most terrifying movie of 2021 is here, that kind of thing. I'm like, I'll give it a day in court. I don't believe that until I see it, but like hyperbole gets views. And so the reason that you see a lot of that is because there are so many websites contending for your attention, and the way to get your attention is through hyperbole. Whether it's this is the greatest movie I ever saw or this is the worst movie I ever saw, nobody wants to see a series of reviews that are like, here's a completely adequate piece of entertainment. Although a lot of my reviews tend to be that because I think I'm a big believer in the bell curve when it comes to just art in general, that there are, on the one end, there's some really exceptional films in terms of like being terrific in quality. There are some movies that are garbage in quality, and then the bell curve of that, where typically your average movie is just that, an average movie, but that doesn't get clicks, that doesn't get the conversation going, but it's mostly true. Jim also pointing out that Bloodbath from Stephanie Rothman is mostly a Jack Hill movie that Stephanie Rothman finished. Yeah, it's still that's an interesting collection of movies. I'm kind of interested in exploring more of that as I'm kind of putting together the list of the movies we're going to be doing for Dark Parade through January and February. I've got that kind of put together through February of what movies I want to be talking about, and but maybe beyond that, we'll get into some more women in horror, because it's ever since we first started talking about that, it's a thing that's kind of been on my mind too. Is like, it really is a bummer that there isn't that great female voice. Maybe Mary Warrenoff is the closest we get to it. That's the one that I kept coming back to. At any rate, let's talk about one more news story before we get into the really controversial stuff, which is that coming soon to a theater near you, a new movie produced by Dark Castle Entertainment. They did Seance earlier this year, that Simon Barrett joint. They're doing another movie called Book of Chaos. And it's kind of notable because they've been quiet for a while. Like during the 2000s, you had like House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts and Ghost Ship and Orphan and Gothica. And anyway, they've been kind of relaunched since about 2017 and are coming back not only with Seance, but are doing Orphan First Kill, the prequel to Orphan that is somehow going to star Isabel Fuhrman again. And I think that it's kind of an interesting group of folks. Like, it was originally Joel Silver and Robert Zemeckis and Gilbert Adler, who had also all done that HBO Tales from the Crypt series. Interesting group of guys, for sure. Like, Joel Silver is weirdly the odd man in that bunch for me, because he seems so much more action oriented. Zemeckis, I get. Zemeckis has always kind of danced around genre filmmaking and did like I Love You to Death. Is that what that was called? No, Death Becomes Her. That's what it was. And so yeah, anyway, I'm always glad when there's a new horror shingle or an old horror shingle. Like, just recently we talked about Hammer Studios basically saying that they're back in business, and so is Dark Castle. And I'm sure a lot of this has to do with the Blumhouse effect of like, oh, maybe we can make a lot of money by giving directors a few $1,000,000, and some of these movies are not going to hit, but if they do, oh boy, we are in for some cash. So anyway, it's kind of fun. I like the Dark Castle logo, which, you know, that's like saying I'm rooting for this football team because I like their uniforms, but that's kind of what it is. But I thought the Dark Castle originally, you know, this was all going to be, we're remaking some William Castle movies. But again, that's another thing I'm totally fine with. So anyway, good to have him back. That's all. There, you know, more Dark Castle movies on the way. I dig it. So let's get into the real fun, which is, let's get to this. Let me make this change. So the good people at Reddit, and by good people I mean, you know, knuckleheads on the internet, have assembled the 20 most disturbing movies of all time, according to, I think this was done in like R Horror, perhaps. Anyway, let's start at number 20 and decide if these are truly disturbing movies or if this is just, you know, people being stupid. Number 20, Suicide Circle, aka Suicide Club, the Shion Sono movie. I think Suicide Club and Suicide Circle is great. I do think it's somewhat disturbing. I'm okay with that sitting at number 20. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, you know, thumbs up. Number 19, Threads, the British horror movie. Well, not even a horror movie, technically. It is the British movie that is the British equivalent of The Day After, or The Day After is the American equivalent of Threads, depending on how you want to look at it. But it's about like, hey, here's what would happen if a nuclear war went down. And the way that Threads kind of poses this question is like, this is kind of best case scenario, and it's horrifying. I have seen Threads 2 or 3 times. You should really only ever watch it one time. But Threads is disturbing. So I'm 100% on board with Threads being part of the list of most disturbing movies. Number 18, we need to talk about Kevin. This is where I do disturbing. I mean, maybe. I don't know that I think it belongs on this list. I like We Need to Talk About Kevin a lot. I think it's a really good movie. I don't know that I would necessarily call it disturbing, but, you know, your mileage may vary, I suppose. Then we come to number 17, which is the X-Files, but in particular an episode called Home, which was, I think, removed from syndication for a long time and was tough to see because it did garner a lot of complaints when people watched it when it first aired. I think this is a bit of a cheat because it's a television episode and not a movie, but I also think it's pretty shocking. The fact that it was ever on television is shocking. If you've never seen the Home episode of the X-Files, even if you're not an X-Files fan, you should watch that episode. It's really something. Jim saying Threads is fantastic and deserves a spot on there. Yeah, I think Threads is a no-brainer. I think that Home makes sense. Like, again, if you've never seen the Home episode of the X-Files, you should. It's really something. Number 16, 8mm, the Nicolas Cage movie. Again, this is not necessarily the top 20 disturbing horror movies, just movies. Again, I don't know that I would put 8mm on there. It's not, I don't know that I found it that disturbing. I mean, the subject matter is for sure, but it's one of those things that like it's more show than tell, or more tell than show for 8mm. You're mostly seeing the reaction. Like, what was that George C. Scott movie where he was watching the movie of the little girl being either like raped or killed or something? I don't mean to sound casual when I say that. I mean, but this is all pretend. We all know this is all make believe. But 8mm, I mean, I guess again, sure, for the normies, I suppose that makes some sense. Number 15, totally agree with this one. It is John Waters' Pink Flamingos. That is a movie that you have to be a special kind of weirdo to enjoy. I think it's very funny. But it is absolutely disturbing. That is a movie that goes out of its way to shock you, and for the most part succeeds. I think Pink Hardcore, Alan and Lee in the chat reminded me of the George C. Scott movie Hardcore. Yes, I think Hardcore is more disturbing than 8mm. But yeah, back to Pink Flamingos, totally belongs on this list. Yes. Maybe the height of John Waters in his I'm Here to Shock You years, although is it Modern Living? Hold on. Let's get the name of the movie right. Before I give you the also you could go for this one. Female Trouble is what I'm thinking of. Female Trouble, that run, Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Desperate Living, any of those movies could fall into that category of being like, well, this is kind of disturbing. But Pink Flamingos is that's probably right. So I'm there for it. Number 14, Martyrs. The original Martyrs. Yeah, absolutely belongs on this list. Martyrs is a shocking film. Lee says 8mm stood out for its time, but doesn't stand the test of time. I would tend to agree with that. I think it's, again, one of those things that it's more shocking in theory than it is in practice. Glenn saying Pink Flamingos left a bad taste in my mouth. LOL. Yes. Yes, of course. Of course it did. That's what it's there for. But Martyrs, yeah. Martyrs is a terrific movie. I like it a lot, but I also understand that it is disturbing. It disturbed me. It is the reason that, French extremism was one of the reasons, like that, and Eels, and Frontiers, and Inside, like that handful of movies was like, what in the hell is going on in France? What is the problem with these people? But Martyrs absolutely belongs on the list. Alan saying Thesis is the better 8mm. I have not seen Thesis, but I've danced around it a number of times. That's going to be a movie I watch at some point in the not too distant future. And Jim saying that he's never looked at a lobster the same after seeing Female Trouble. Yeah. Again, that run of Female Trouble, Desperate Living, Pink Flamingos from John Waters is a trio of movies that will certainly shock you. Number 13 is Come and See. And I'm not sure if I am familiar with Come and See. If I could spell, this would make a lot of difference. Come and See from 1985, I assume. Yeah, okay. I'm familiar with the movie. I just haven't seen it. Yeah, this is about it's a Soviet film or a Russian film about a young kid joining the Soviet resistance movement against ruthless German forces and experiences the horrors of World War II. So I have not seen Come and See. I have seen the poster and knew that it was a war film, but I've never seen it. So, Lee is agreeing, however, that Come and See for sure is disturbing. So I need to see that, I guess. You know, because when I hear a movie about the horrors of World War II, it is Christmas time after all. It's time to watch these things. Number 12, Todd Solondz's Happiness, which I definitely agree is a disturbing film. Kind of a weird drama comedy, black comedy kind of thing. Philip Seymour Hoffman. Happiness is a tough watch. It involves a lot of just disgusting behavior out of people, and it like punches your soul. Yeah. I can't speak to Come and See. Happiness, I can't speak to. Happiness belongs on the list. Number 11, though, this is where it gets a little strange for me. Jacob's Ladder is at number 11, a movie that I don't find disturbing at all. So maybe I'm just jaded and broken as a person. Jacob's Ladder does not do it to me. Any of the versions. In fairness, I didn't see the sequel or the remake of Jacob's Ladder. That seemed like a thing that just did not appeal to me. But anyway, Lee confirming that Happiness is icky. Yes, that is true. The next on the list, sitting at number 10, we're getting into the top 10 now, is Jesus Camp, which is a documentary. And I would also agree that this is a disturbing movie for very different reasons. It is, Jesus Camp is a documentary about kids who are basically trying to one up each other in terms of being evangelical and religious at a crazy level. Lee also confirming that Jacob's Ladder does not belong on this list. That was one of the handful of movies where I was like, really? I mean, okay. Again, some of these normies creeping into the list, but Jesus Camp I think is a good pick because it's like real world. Like, holy shit, I can't believe there are people out there like this. Holy shit, there are a bunch of them too. So yeah. Number 9 on our list is Irreversible. Gaspar Noé's Irreversible. Yes. That is a disturbing movie. Belongs on this list 100%. And most of the movies I agree with in the top 10. Irreversible certainly belongs on the list. Number 7 is a Serbian film, which I would say, like, I don't think a Serbian film is a great movie. Is it disturbing? Yeah, I think it is. For the end alone, like, it just goes places, right? Like, it is a movie that trades on being shocking, and I think it is pretty shocking. Is it good? I don't know about that, but it definitely is shocking and disturbing. And above a Serbian film is number 6, and that is Audition, the Takashi Miike film. I think I've seen Audition so many times it doesn't disturb me now. At the time I saw it, I found it highly disturbing, not just because of the end of the movie, where, you know, a dude is getting pieces of him carved up with piano wire. If you've never seen Audition, that happens, and it's shocking. But it's the dude in the bag, like the other guy that's being kept in Audition, that I think is incredibly disturbing. So again, I think it totally belongs on the list. It's also one of the best movies on this list, I think. I am of the stripe. It's when we talked about Audition forever ago on Hero Go Show, we talked about the alternate interpretation of that movie, in which nothing after the initial dinner date is real, and that it's all like a figment of the main character's imagination. And I tend to think that that might be the actual interpretation of the film, but I like Audition a lot. I do think it belongs on the list. I do think it's deserving of its placement here. Alan saying it's so it's so hard to take a Serbian film seriously. Yeah, that's the problem with, I think, a Serbian film. Unlike the John Waters stuff, which I think comes by its trashiness. Honestly, a Serbian film feels like it was made somewhat cynically to get to that ending, just so that it could be shocking. Like the ending came first. Number 5 on the list is a movie that I think is one of the greatest hoaxes perpetrated on the cinema audience. It's the Human Centipede, which I don't think is all that disturbing. I just think it's bad. The premise of it, like when you first hear the premise, that's kind of shocking, but I don't think the movie itself is actually nearly as disturbing as the premise. I just don't think it's very good. I don't think it delivers on what it, I mean, there is a human centipede and all that, but for whatever reason, that movie just felt like a sham to me. So I do not like the Human Centipede. I don't find it all that disturbing. I find it mostly a waste of time. So there are other people I know that just think it is the peak of, this is, pearl clutching kind of disgusting filmmaking. I ain't one of those people. Number 4 is kind of a curious one. Number 4 is Rosemary's Baby. And that, I think, it doesn't stretch, but it certainly, like, so it begs the question of, like, what is disturbing? And the idea in Rosemary's Baby, like, I think it's brilliant. I think the idea that all of a sudden you're in a world where everyone is against you, and I ain't even a woman from the 1960s, but that is really the thrust of Rosemary's Baby, right? Is that your loved ones, your neighbors, your doctor, like everybody is in a conspiracy against you, and that is disturbing. And so I get it. I understand why it's here. I think that's the disturbing element, not the, like, oh, he has his father's eyes. Like, that part of it I don't think is all that disturbing. But the social paranoia, I think, works in that movie really well. Lee say that Human Centipede is just more edgelord crap. I agree with that. Glenn says the second Human Centipede is much more shocking than the first. Yeah, I have heard that. I've watched about 10 minutes of the second Human Centipede movie, and I can't with those. Yeah, life's too short. Speaking of life being too short, number 3, top 3, folks, is 120 Days of Sodom. And, AKA Salo. I totally agree that movie is very disturbing. I don't know how much of a movie it is, but it is, like, early on, like, that might be the first, like, true edgelord kind of movie of, like, we're just gonna make this movie that's got a bunch of, like, disgusting and crazy and bonkers shit in it, literal shit at times. Yeah, I think it belongs on the list for sure. Top 3, but it's up there. It's definitely top 10 of, like, it's one of those movies that you kind of check off if you're a horror fan when people are like, oh, you got to see Solo. And like I said, I don't know how much of a movie it is, but it is definitely something to behold. Lee saying Rosemary's Baby might be worthy if you're one of those Catholics who found The Exorcist the pinnacle of terror, to each their own. Yeah, I don't know that the religious angle or the sort of Antichrist angle is what I find disturbing about about Rosemary's Baby. But the idea of everyone being quietly against you is the thing that bothers me about it. And I can make that argument, but being kind of top five, I don't know about that. Speaking of the top five, let's round out the last two films. Number 2, Requiem for a Dream, 100%. Yes, Requiem for a Dream is disturbing as hell. That is, and only more so, I think. Like, that's a movie I've only seen maybe twice. Maybe I've only seen it the one time. But it definitely, like, it leaves a crater in your brain. Like, that thing, you can feel the crease in your brain where that memory is formed, where you're like, oh, yeah, it's Jennifer Connelly and that other girl going ass to ass because of their need for drugs. That it is shocking. That movie, but it comes by it honestly. Like, that is not a movie that's just out to shock you for the sake of shocking you. That is a movie that comes by it honest. And the Ellen Burstyn stuff is tragic and shocking. Yes, 100 times yes. Requiem for a Dream, I think, should have been number 1. That is the movie that will wake you up to the idea of like, oh, not over the counter, but just prescription pills can turn you into just a maniac. And Marlon Wayans losing his arm and whatnot. Yeah. The terrific movie, but also incredibly disturbing. The number 1 is really bizarre to me, but the number 1 most disturbing film, according to Reddit, is Dead Girl, which, I mean, kinda, I guess. Dead Girl, I think, is an interesting movie. I was stunned to see it at the number 1 here, but I like it. I think Dead Girl, it has some great ideas. I think Noah Segan is quite good in Dead Girl. And I like what the movie has to say about male sexuality and male aggression and all of that. And the number 1 most disturbing movie of all time? I don't think so, but again, this is a list, for the normies. Alan saying, I found Requiem too camp to be disturbing, in all honesty. That's crazy. I mean, I guess I just don't see the camp quality of Requiem for a Dream. That was a movie that really hit me hard, but not saying anybody's wrong. This is all opinion stuff, but yeah, I think Requiem for a Dream is great and disturbing. Dead Girl, I do think is disturbing. I don't think it's the most disturbing movie of all time. That feels like a movie that Reddit users would vote for, though. Because speaking of edgelord, holy shit, that is an edgelord movie. Lee saying, not number 1, but I can see an argument to have it on the list. That's where I am. I think it belongs on the list, but like bottom 10 or bottom 20, like have that come in around 15 or 14. But yeah, that is the textbook definition of an edgelord film as far as I am concerned. I think it has something to say. It's not just an edgelord film, but it's an edgelord film. Okay, and that's that is all the news I got for this time around. So any further questions you have, drop them in to chat as we're wrapping up. I got a handful of movies coming to streaming between now and when next we talk. December 17th on Netflix, The Witcher Season 2 is dropping. Not technically horror, but that's coming out. And on December 18th, Old Boy is coming to Netflix. I assume that's the Spike Lee old boy. But you know, hopefully, cross our fingers, it's the Park Chan-wook. Um, and then kind of nothing on the other streaming services until you get to Shudder, who continues to do good work. On the 17th, they've got a special called Joe Bob Ruins Christmas that is coming. You guys probably know this about me. I'm not a Joe Bob Briggs fan, but a lot of people love Joe Bob Briggs, and I think that's great. I'm just not one of them. Done a lot of good things for the genre, have a lot of admiration for the guy. Don't necessarily find the Joe Bob stuff all that entertaining. On December 13th, which is tomorrow, if you're listening to this, or if you're listening to Morbid Mondays, that means today, there is a documentary called All the Colors of Giallo, examining that particular subgenre. And along with it comes the addition to the Shudder service of Orgasmo, which I just listened to the podcast Over the Stairs episode from a couple of days ago about that movie. Knife of Ice, So Sweet, So Perverse, another Umberto Lenzi joint. A Quiet Place to Kill, which I think is also Lindsay. All the Creatures Were Stirring is not Giallo, but is coming on the 13th to Shudder. On the 14th, Rose Plays Julie, which is an interesting sounding film, and a movie that I have desperately been looking forward to watching. My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, which is a sort of vampire movie, and I understand just a contender for one of the best movies of 2021. So that is another one. Speaking of Duncan McLeish, who he's been banging the drum for that movie for a while, and I'm very excited to check that one out. So that's coming in the next week to the streaming services. Again, if you are not subscribed to Shudder, you oughta, because that's where all the action is for we horror fans. Alan thrown a couple of also rans for the most disturbing movies of all time. And I haven't seen either of these. Fat Girl and Man Behind the Sun. And Glenn also seconding Man Behind the Sun. I haven't seen those. And Leah's off to watch Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Oh, man, that's good Harryhausen right there. Have a good time, sir. And that's going to wrap it up here for Sinister Sunday as well. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Thanks for debating these movies. That was a good time. I think I'm going to try to find a list each time. I like these. I like talking about these lists, much like the Oscars and much like that Writers Guild of America, best screenplays of 2020 or 21st century so far. It's just kind of great to get the conversation rolling. As always, thank you so much for listening to The Dark Parade. Thank you for turning out for these live shows to chat about these movies. I absolutely adore it. It's so much fun. Thanks for continuing to share and support the show and all that fun stuff. We've got reviews up on iTunes now, so please, if you haven't done so, continue to do so there. That actually makes a giant world of difference. And we got a bunch of stuff coming soon. We've got Heart of Horror coming up pretty soon. There's going to be a new found footage full pretty soon. And then this very week, we're starting the Black Christmas conversation. Me and Court Psyops are going to talk about the original 1974 Black Christmas. And then the week after that, there won't be a Sinister Sunday / Morbid Monday next weekend because I'm going to be working. But I highly encourage you to check out the following week. In addition to Black Christmas 74, I am joined by Richard Glenn Schmidt to talk about the 2006 remake of Black Christmas, and that conversation as well is a banger. So I think you're going to really enjoy both of those episodes coming soon. Thanks to everyone for participating with the Christmas Anonymous stuff. Again, I'll shut up about it other than to thank you until next year, and then I'll be annoying about it again and try to get you to support that charity. It was I can't tell you. I mean, my Grinch heart grew 3 sizes yesterday doing all that stuff. It was absolutely terrific. So we will see everyone very soon for another Sinister Sunday, and plenty more coming on the Dark Parade. So thanks again. We'll see you very soon. Bye.